You recognize your patterns while they are happening. You hear yourself say yes, while already knowing you will resent it. You notice yourself withdrawing from someone you care about and can explain exactly why. You catch the thought, becoming an overthinking spiral as it forms, but awareness has never stopped you from repeating any of it. You can explain yourself perfectly, you just cannot seem to move. The more you understand yourself, the less certain you feel about who you should become. That is not a lack of self-awareness. It is what can happen when awareness stops being a window and becomes a room you never leave. Most people move through life without examining every reaction. You do the opposite. You replay the sentence that changed the mood. You notice the expression before someone says they are fine. You leave a conversation and reconstruct it from 6 different angles. Even when you are alone, part of you remains outside yourself, watching. Was that honest or attention-seeking? Was that boundary necessary or selfish? Do you want this, or only want to become someone who would? It sounds like depth. Sometimes it is. But there is a point where knowing yourself becomes monitoring yourself. A life constantly monitored is difficult to actually live. Self-awareness should help you notice what is happening inside you. Self-surveillance demands that you evaluate it while it happens. One creates understanding. The other turns every feeling into evidence for a trial. You become the witness, the prosecutor, and the accused. A quiet afternoon becomes a question about wasting your potential. Attraction becomes a debate about attachment. Anger becomes an investigation into childhood. A mistake becomes a verdict on your identity. Nothing is allowed to remain small, because every choice appears to reveal something permanent. Choosing begins to feel dangerous. So you wait. One more journal entry, one more video, or one more night of thinking will surely produce the answer. But reflection and rumination are not the same thing. Reflection discovers something new. Rumination walks the same hallway and calls every lap progress. It asks why you feel this way, why the answer bothers you, then whether the answer was honest. The thinking becomes sophisticated, but your life remains in place. This is why self-aware people feel especially frustrated. You are not avoiding the problem in the usual way. You are looking directly at it. But looking can become its own form of avoidance. No rejection, no disappointing result, no choice that closes another future. Searching feels safer than discovering what happens when you act. There is another reason you may feel lost. You are good at reading rooms. You notice who feels excluded, who needs reassurance, and which version of you will make things easier. Adjustment becomes automatic. Quieter around one person, funnier around another, calmer when everyone else is unstable. This does not make you fake. You may have learned that awareness keeps relationships safe. But when your attention is always tracking other people, your own preferences arrive as whispers. Someone asks what you want, and you hear consequences. Who might be disappointed? What is sensible? Which choice requires the least explanation? Eventually, you describe everyone else's needs precisely, while your own life feels strangely unclaimed. That is why solitude can feel like relief. When the door closes, the signals stop. No faces to read, no mood to manage, no version of yourself to perform. Your mind can lower its guard. Wanting that does not mean you dislike people. Sometimes solitude is how an observant person returns to themselves. Solitude can take 2 very different forms. In the first, you become quieter and clearer. You rest, create, remember what you enjoy, and return feeling more like yourself. In the second, you keep postponing your return. You replay conversations, rehearse futures, and explain why you are not ready yet. The room that protected you becomes a waiting room. You may no longer be alone to recover. You may be alone because the outside world could contradict the identity constructed inside. Solitude is not the enemy, but it needs an exit. Highly self-aware people often carry an archive of themselves, the person before they were hurt, the person they became to survive, the person their family expects, the disciplined future self, the person they might have been. Every decision seems to betray one of them, so instead of choosing a life, you keep all the possible lives open in your head. That feels like freedom, but it produces paralysis. No direction becomes real while every alternative remains equally alive. You do not feel lost because there is nothing inside you. You feel lost because too many internal voices offer directions, and you are waiting for one to become unquestionable. Here is the part self-aware people rarely hear. Clarity is not always something you find before moving. Often, it is something movement produces. You test a boundary by setting it and observing what changes. You discover whether work matters by meeting its real difficulty. You learn what you want through contact with reality, not a perfect simulation of it. Thought can predict. Only action can provide evidence. This is not recklessness. It is accepting that internal observation cannot answer a question requiring external experience. Your awareness was never supposed to replace your life. It was supposed to help you participate in it. So use a rule. When awareness reveals a pattern, create one piece of opposing evidence within 24 hours. If you realize you disappear whenever connection becomes vulnerable, send one honest sentence instead of writing another private explanation. If fear keeps you inside a career you have outgrown, do not decide your future tonight. Spend 15 minutes testing one alternative. If you notice that solitude has become hiding, leave the room before your mind invents another condition you must satisfy first. Make it small, specific, and preferably reversible. Its purpose is not to solve your life. It interrupts the belief that more thought is the only safe step. Give solitude an exit. Rest deliberately. Reflect honestly. Decide when you will return before the room begins deciding for you. Awareness names the pattern. Evidence changes your relationship with it. You may never become the person who moves through life without questioning anything. That is not the goal. Your sensitivity notices what others miss. Solitude can protect something real. Self-awareness can stop unconscious patterns from owning your future. But those strengths become cages when observation replaces participation. You do not need one final explanation of who you are. You need one honest action that allows life to answer back. Because the way out of your mind is not to become less aware. It is to stop using awareness as permission to wait.